Hi and welcome to the first of the KV518 podcasts of the year. Following on from last year's KV421 Reflective Practice module, this is the Year 2 Reflective Practice module, further Reflective Practice Professional Development. And as I did last year, I'll be posting podcasts like this one ahead of each of the 6 Saturday sessions throughout the year. If we've not met before, my name is Mark Price and I'm the overall module coordinator for the 2 reflective practice modules. Just a few words to begin with about the structure and focus of the module this year, and then I'll be talking a bit particularly about a key theme, if you like, for the first session and for the year as a whole. So hopefully over the course of last year, you will be familiar with the idea of working in a small reflective practice group with a tutor that you bring along to those sessions, posting ahead of the Saturday session, an example of a recent incident or point of reflection in your practice, to share that practice with each other and to develop a kind of way of questioning and exploring those issues with you, which is both supportive but hopefully at times challenges you in a supportive way to think about your own practice and also to learn from each other. I sometimes think that hearing other people reflect on their practice is one of the most kind of beneficial learning experiences I have. That it always makes me kind of reflect on my own practices as well. So not only do we learn about our own practices when we share our recordings, but we also learn from other people's processes as well. And that kind of way of working collaboratively, again, we would kind of hope and encourage you to continue with this year. The process of setting a learning contract through a 3-way meeting with your reflective practice tutor, your workplace learning facilitator, and yourself continues. So you should be meeting early this year in September, October time with your reflective practice tutor and your workplace learning facilitator to agree that learning contract, and that will then frame the way you're planning to work with the reflective practice module and your practice over the coming semester through till the end of January, beginning of February time. There are just a few changes to some of the reflective practice groups. So if you are affected by this, hopefully you will have heard by now, and your route leader will have sent details through to you. These changes are usually due to either people returning from periods of intermission, taking time out from the course, or the group somehow becoming unwieldy. Perhaps a group becomes too small or too big, or in fact sometimes the reflective practice tutors change as well. So there may be changes to your group, and it's always worth just checking out with your route leader if your group's still the same. I'll also be posting ahead of the first Saturday session a kind of an outline of groups and also the rooms that you're going to be in for the very first session. The other big change this year for you in terms of reflective practice is the groups this year are self-facilitated. That means that you'll be meeting hopefully in a small group. For most people it'll be the same group, and you'll be circulating your recordings to each other in your group ahead of the Saturday session. But when you meet on the Saturday session, your reflective practice tutor won't be present. We'll ask each of you in turn to act as facilitator for each of the 6 Saturday sessions. So hopefully each of you in the group will have a chance to be facilitator for that particular session. And that as facilitator of the session, you should then take some notes from the session and send them back to your reflective practice tutor after the session, and they will then respond to those. So you send the recordings around to each other ahead of the session and include your reflective practice tutor when you send your recordings out ahead of the session. And then after the session, whoever chaired the session, whoever facilitated the session, take some notes about the session, how it went, and send those back to your reflective practice tutor. They'll be expecting those, and then they'll comment on those. They'll give you some feedback as a whole. They won't give you individual feedback on your individual recordings. Your reflective practice tutor will also then obviously come and meet with you and your work-based learning facilitator to set the learning contract, and that will continue. So in terms of then thinking about those reflective practice groups, hopefully they've worked best, if you like, when you've been able to explore aspects of your practice, and particularly things that have been either puzzling you or you've questioned your own kind of practice within that. And hopefully by now you realise we're not necessarily looking for the right answer, but we're looking for how you develop and develop your awareness of practice and your ability to question your own and other people's practice. And that questioning, I think, is really, really important, particularly for this second year of the course, asking the right question in the right way. More broadly, I think the process of questioning and asking the right question is the hallmark of a good educator in whatever context. Hopefully your sense of supporting others' learning, both the children and people you work with and each other, isn't about telling people, it's about helping people to learn, and it's often the questions which unlock the learning process. So how do we ask the right question at the right time? And as an example, and it's probably not the best example in terms of modelling questioning, I remember a time when I think I must have been like 13, 14, and something, I'd been incredibly stupid basically. I'd done something which I won't go into details with, but it's one of those things I still think about, and my dad got to hear about it. I remember him coming home from work, and he had this, he never really shouted, but he had this ability to kind of let you know how really, really angry he was just by his voice. And I remember him saying to me very clearly, "Why on earth would you be so stupid? Why on earth would you be so stupid?" And he did it in a way which made me crumble. Basically, I remember feeling completely stupid, but also embarrassed and just wanted to crawl away. Now, the reason why I'm kind of telling this story is it's not about personal therapy. It's more to do with the fact that, as much as I love my dad, on that occasion, his questioning of me wasn't a form of questioning which opened up a learning experience. And in fact, we never really did return to the particular incident. It became one of those things we never spoke about. But what it did do is made me feel bad. And I often wanted to say to him, was that your intention? Was your intention in saying that to me? Why on earth would you be so stupid? Was it because you wanted to shock me and make me feel bad? Or were you genuinely wanting to help me learn? And I don't think he was interested particularly in me learning at that point. I think it was just kind of his way of telling me off. But it's made me think particularly about how we ask questions which enable people to reflect on what happened. So in that case, rather than "why on earth were you so stupid?" I wondered sometimes what the question might have he asked me, which might have helped me learn from the process and reflect on what had happened. And I think this I mean, hindsight's a great thing, we know that, but I think what this does for me is when we're thinking about questioning each other, questioning ourselves, questioning the children and young people we work with, questioning our tutors, questioning other fellow students, is thinking about what's the intention behind our question. What is it that we're wanting to evoke or develop in terms of thinking? What's behind our question? And also kind of what level of integrity do we have in asking that question? Are we wanting to put the other person down? Are we wanting to prove a point ourselves? Or are we genuinely wanting to help that person learn and raise a learning point for them and others? So when you prepare for the Saturday sessions, if you can, think about the questions that you would want people to ask you in relation to your own example of your practice, the recording you've sent around. Hopefully those questions aren't just simply factual questions, what happened, this, that, about telling the story, but questions which enable you to reflect and go deeper into thinking about what's happening in that particular example. So think about questions for yourself, but also think about questions that you would ask each other when you receive their recordings. So somebody else in your group sends you their recording, you read it, it kind of maybe makes you think about certain things. Think about the questions you would ask that person, the person that sent it, to help them and others in the group learn. So thinking about the purpose of the question and then the way that the question is phrased and asked in a particular way which supports learning. And as always, of course, we do know as a fact that there are more questions than answers, and hopefully that the Saturday sessions will give you some opportunities to ask those helpful but difficult and challenging questions to support each other's learning. I'll see you around on the Saturdays, and as always, do give me any feedback if you would like to about these podcasts and anything you would like me particularly to address in the podcasts as well. I look forward to seeing you over the course of the year.